always saw unemployment as an intermission. You know, some days it is such a roller coaster ride. It is. Some days you feel you're going to have 4 competing offers, and other days you sit there in tears thinking, I will never work again. And so it's trying to balance that out and smooth it out. Being unemployed is an opportunity. And the strength that we have being unemployed that we don't necessarily put a spotlight on is being time rich. So you have all the time in the world to go pursue other things. You know, if you have household projects that have been hanging in the balance, you wanted to read the latest bestseller, you wanted to get to the gym more often, you have that ability to shape that time. And yes, there are financial pressures that come along with it that are very real that you need to pay attention to, but some things you just can't control.
Today, we're exploring how unemployment can be more than just a job search. It can be a time for growth, discovery, and new possibilities. My guest, Raina Rusnak, knows how to embrace challenges in career transition and in life. She's the author of Sampling Life: 100 Ways of Finding Joy in Unemployment, a book that helps people reframe uncertainty as opportunity. A mountaineer, problem solver, strategist, she was the 77th woman to reach the highest natural point in each continental US state. That same resilience and curiosity shapes her approach to navigating challenges. Today, we're exploring how simple, intentional activities like journaling, connecting with others, can turn career transitions into opportunities. Welcome, Raina.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.
Well, I would like to start out with, how did you come about writing this book?
You know, it started organically. I never had this bucket list item to write a book. It poured out of me. And when you're unemployed, you are time rich and you are doing everything you can to network with other people. So a typical week for me looked like connecting with 20 or more different people, and many of whom were similarly unemployed. And one day I found myself talking with someone who, at the end of our discussion, confided that they had almost canceled our meeting. And they talked about their depression and how difficult it was. And they said, you know, I'm really glad that I kept this meeting because you've inspired me. You've turned this around for me. And now I'm feeling ready to take on the week. And I mean, what better thing to hear from a one-on-one discussion that you've inspired someone? But it didn't stop there. It actually, because I was doing so much networking during my 18 months of unemployment, I started to hear this echoed from other people. And by the time that number reached double digits, I started processing it. I was out for a walk where you can really process a lot of information. And I thought, well, what way can I reach a broader platform? Because, you know, with 6.5 million people unemployed in our country and that number threatening to go up in pretty short order, it's impossible for me to meet individually with all 6.5 million. But if I could put a resource out there to help other people, that to me was a win. My recommendation is to intentionally block your time. So it is imperative that you dedicate time toward the job search. You don't need to be doing that 24/7. And in fact, you will burn out if you approach it that way. So the strategy that worked best for me, I'm a morning person. So my first recommendation is to take a look at where your energy level is highest. If you're a morning person, carve out time in the morning toward your job search. If you're a night owl, you know, do it at 2:00 in the morning, whatever works for you, wherever you are in your flow, and carve out a set amount of time per day, per work day. I took weekends to be with my family, but to give yourself that balance. So that way you're making progress every day, or you feel that you're doing something toward that end goal every day, but then you're also allowing yourself that space and that time to recharge and reset and to work on your mental game and to restore yourself and to have a positive mindset.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point. I think also what's important is that you keep yourself busy, because if you have too much time on your hands, you tend to focus that on yourself. And then that tends to often be things that are negative thoughts, like, well, you can't find another job, you're getting too old for this, or whatever it might be. And that negative self talk obviously is not helpful. Did you experience some of that? And was that a catalyst for you to figure out all these different ways of spending your time and doing things that you wanted to do?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you have to be aware of those voices that are talking to you. It's something you hear that voice saying, "I'm never going to work again. Why is this not working?" Take that moment, shed your tears, feel the feelings, but then dust yourself off and get back out there. So it's paying attention, letting yourself ride it out, because if you just give yourself the time to feel emotions, you will work through it quicker than if you try to suppress it. But be aware of it and try to reframe it and say, okay, this one didn't work out. It's going to happen. I will be working at some point, even if it doesn't feel that way, but to stay true to that and to boost yourself up. So tell yourself, you are strong. You can get through this. You are resilient. Even if you're not believing the words, it's helpful to say them to yourself when you're in this stressful period of time that it's really hard to walk this road.
I think it's not only saying the words, but I think it's also important to create very specific daily habits that teach you that you are actually capable, that you are able to do those things. And so then your brain gets rewired to then believing that I am already that person that has that job that I want. So we, in the introduction, we talked about that you are a mountaineer, and not just like a casual mountaineer like I am. But talk about your experience as a mountaineer, how it has shaped your mindset when facing this uncertainty, whether on the trail or on the career transition.
It's not a mountaineering, but it's a hiking example. Mount Whitney, which is the highest natural point in California, I ended up hiking that in one day. So it's 22 miles round trip. And a lot of it I did by myself. And when you hit a certain point of the mountain, there's, I don't know, 99 switchbacks. And so you're just going back and forth up the mountain by yourself, in my case. And there were so many times where I just wanted to quit. And I was thinking about all of the road that I had behind me. If I spun right then, how much time was it going to take me to get back down the mountain? At every point where I sat down and took a break, and this is where I recommend in life, it's the exact same thing. It's better to take a break and take yourself out of the job search, out of the game. Just give yourself a rest and reflect. I would sit on the trail, and it was these trail angels would just appear. And at every point where I was really ready to just turn around, one person said, "You're just out for a walk." And I said, "Yes, I am just out for a walk." And then at the next point where I was ready to turn around, someone said, "One foot in front of the other. You'll get there." And I said, "Yes, that's great. I really needed that." And it's these simple words where we can prop each other up along the way to keep each other going.
I think also the community aspect that you talked about, or the support aspect that you talked about, is very important. So I think a lot of individuals that are looking for a job, they've been working in a team, they're used to collaborating with people. And then once they're in the job search, they're all by themselves and they don't have somebody that says, hey, continue, you're doing great, you're doing all the things that you need to do. And so did you have a community of people that supported you, or how did you deal with that?
Yes, I found a couple of different networking groups of people who are similarly unemployed. And when you're unemployed, you kind of hit this point where you're like, well, what can we do possibly for each other? It's,
Hmm.
I don't have a job to offer. They don't have a job to offer. But what you lose sight of is that they have an entire network of people who might not be able to help them right at that moment. And you similarly have a network of people who might not be able to help you at that moment. But by connecting each other, you broaden your networks, and you might be able to prop each other up. And ultimately, when I landed the role that I'm in now, that came from two other people who were similarly unemployed. It was word of mouth connecting me with the right people. And so propping each other up is really important during this time.
Yeah. Well, why don't we talk a little bit more about networking? Because I think that this is one of the biggest challenges that people have, because when they're in a job, they don't network.
Yes.
And then once they're out of a job, they call up all these people. And then, some of the people are like, I haven't talked to Raina in years, and now she doesn't have a job and now she's reaching out to me. How did you deal with networking and how did you go about it? What was your method?
So that is very real, where we let our networks go cold, and then as soon as we need something, then we're knocking on the door, and which is conventional wisdom says keep your network warm, which is easier said than done. But what I have done since this last wave of unemployment is I am intentionally keeping my network warm. And it's impossible with thousands of people to, set one-on-one meetings with all of them. But there are key people who are good to keep in touch with, and not just for, what can you do for me? It's if you approach it with the mindset of what can I do for you? And let's just stay in each other's lives. Let's stay understanding what's happening with you professionally and personally. It's kind of like building a family, and it feels good. It does take time, it takes effort, and it takes being intentional about it. But, the next time, this probably won't be the last time people who are unemployed now face that in the future.
I think that's very true. One of the things that I work with my clients on is that you're working for your career rather than working for your employer. And that means that in order for you to always be in the driver's seat, means that you continuously have to network and I even recommend people to continuously interview. Doesn't mean that you do that, as actively as you do when you're out of a job, but you should always be eager to new opportunities. And I think it gives you a couple of things. First of all, it gives you the confidence that people want you. So that also means that you don't put up with shit that you shouldn't be putting up with at work, because you know that you are a coveted entity and people, as I said, want to have you. And then second, also it continues to really keep things fresh for you. They need to continue to foster those relationships. And lastly, also what you said, which was very important, is that it can't be a transactional relationship. It has to be a relationship. What a relationship is a two-way street. And I love what you said is what can I do for you? Because that really builds trust, and so that you're able to help each other.
Yeah, putting that positive energy out into the world, it comes back. I mean, that's a very real thing. And going with an abundance mindset and a growth mindset of how we can help the community benefits everybody. It benefits you, it benefits the other person, and extends even larger than that.
How did you identify that the world is a place of abundance rather than scarcity? That's something that I talk to my clients to all the time. How did you come up with that?
I don't feel good when I'm looking at things in a negative way. And so that's always been my tendency is to, well, okay, let me see what the opportunity is here. And
Hmm.
it's the skier mentality with trees, right? If
Hmm.
you see the trees as obstacles, you're going to hit them. If you see the opening between the trees, you're going to hit the opening, and you're going to be navigating life.
I love that example. I'm gonna co-opt that and use that in the future. That's a really good one. I like that. I think the other part that you alluded to as well is that if we use up our brain space with why things can't work or what I have to lose, then you don't have space for thinking creatively about what I need to do to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. And I am not even able to see the opportunities, right? We can train our brains to see opportunities. Your book highlights simple but powerful activities, like journaling. How does writing help people gain clarity about the next steps?
Well, when you express yourself, give yourself a forum to be able to process your thoughts down on paper. And maybe it's typing, but there's something more magical about physically holding a pen and writing it down on a piece of paper that flows out of you and then enables you to see what's happening in your head and make different connections and maybe make different choices or come up with a new strategy, a new approach to your job search. That gives you a way to see it. I journal when I'm at a particularly rough patch and I need to see it, I need to think about it. Or if it's something, a particularly complex situation that I need to think through the different nuances, or if it's something that I need to remember. Because if you don't study history, you don't remind yourself of it, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, the reason I like writing, and I'm not a big journaler either. I write my blog primarily for myself because this is a way for me to then organize my thoughts. And if I'm writing for an outside audience, I think about it much deeper than when I'm in the shower, right? So when you're in the shower, you have all these great ideas and you're like, oh my God, am I smart? Yeah, and then you actually put it down and it's all platitudes and it's really not that meaningful. And so that process of writing for me clarifies my thoughts. You obviously are an outdoorsy person. You spend a lot of time in the mountains. And you talk about this in the book, how does connecting with nature help people in this process? Why is that important?
There's a ton of research out there that supports being in nature and all of the positive effects that that has on our mental well-being. And in particular, there's a kind of a tipping point that we hit after being in nature for 3 days.
Mhm.
And because that really, some of that is unplugging from devices, but it's also the stress of life just melting away. You're removing yourself from that and you're reaping the benefits of nature. And in Japan, they do nature bathing. They take walks to just immerse themselves in it, and shown they've demonstrated better positivity and stronger mindset. But I will say, so I routinely will go backpacking, and I sometimes take people who are less experienced with backpacking. And with those people having zero familiarity with the 3 day effect, they will independently observe it
Mhm.
and comment on it. By the end of the third day, they'll say, I'm feeling great. And these might not be people who enjoy putting on hiking boots and enjoy getting a little bit dirty and roughing it, but they feel the benefits and they'll comment on it unprompted.
What are some other recommendations that you have for people that you felt were helpful the job search process, or to occupy your time to become a better person so that you are able to find a job?
Well, some of my recommendations are job focused, like focusing on your LinkedIn profile and joining a networking group. I started very new into the unemployment.
Mhm.
I started by making lists of everything I wanted to accomplish because I knew I would be time rich. Finally, I'm not working 65 hours a week. I made lists and I divided them. One of chores to do, I wanted to paint a room, for instance, and I had to fix the patio. And then the other was fun things like learning the thriller dance and reading a latest novel that I wanted to read. So I made these exhaustive lists and then I started cranking through them. And then I thought, this is helping me. Maybe this kind of thing could help other people.
Yeah.
But and then the another item I think is really interesting and probably one of the more controversial items in the book is exploring a new religion. Actually, exploring three
Mhm.
is what I suggest for people. And my advice is not to change your religion. If you are religious, stay true to yourself. If you are not religious, again, be who you are. That is fine. But it's all in the name of community and understanding you are living side by side with neighbors who believe in a different religion, perhaps. And to open your mind, to have that growth mindset, and to get that visibility into what is important to them, that will enable you to connect with them more deeply than you might otherwise. So keeping an open mindset, exploring something, you'll maybe learn something, a new practice, or have visibility into why people are who they are.
I think that that's the theme that I got from your book, is that it's important in life to try new things and to force yourself out of your own comfort zone. And that really creates growth. If it is about learning a dance that you've never done before, or maybe you're not even a dancer and you're trying it, or trying a new recipe, or as you said, which is, I think, very profound actually, to look at different religions, and doesn't mean that you're looking at it from a perspective of, I need to find a new religion, but to be able to understand it and understand why people are, maybe why people act the way they act because they're part of a certain kind of religion. I think that those are all, super powerful. One of the things I forgot to ask you earlier, which I want to come back to, is, I like your LinkedIn profile. So what did you learn about creating a LinkedIn or optimizing your LinkedIn profile? And what did you specifically do?
Storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Storytelling is key. We as people thrive on that. I mean, you can give people facts and figures, that's not going to stick. But if you build a story around it, it will resonate with people. So I lead with being a mountaineer and having the grit and determination and endurance that comes along with that, because those are transferable skills into the business world. And then another thing I had read to maximize the performance of your LinkedIn profile is to put in some of the keywords. What are those attributes that if people are doing a search, they want project management or they want SaaS or whatever it is, put your skills in that section so that it's searchable. And then the other thing that I did in that same body is to highlight some of the referrals and the comments that other people who know me well have said about me, because those are buried at the bottom of the LinkedIn profile. So I pulled out 3 of those and attributed to them and said, these are direct quotes. So this is about Raina. And so you create this whole story of, here's who I am. Here's who I am outside of the office, because we are more than the sum of what we bring to work. And what we do outside of the office, that flows right back into our professional lives as well. That's part of us.
I definitely think that your profile does that. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I think that there are so many practical tips in the book. People should definitely check the book out, but they also should connect with you on LinkedIn. And I love the cover too.
Thank you.
It's a great cover. Yeah, and connect with you on LinkedIn and check out your LinkedIn profile, because it's a great example of how to do a good LinkedIn profile.
Thanks so much for having me, Stephen. This was so delightful connecting with you today.